oh yeah, I'm doing my shadow work. I've acknowledged my shadows. Well, no, you just admitted that you had them, but you're not doing a damn thing about changing them. You're not doing a damn thing about healing them. So guess what? They're still running the show. When we shine the light on the shadow, it is awareness. First, be aware that it's there. Second is the acknowledgement of the effect it has had on you and the others in your lives. And third is action. What are you going to do to change it, right? We've said that nature abhors a vacuum. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to do this thing anymore. And what are you replacing it with?
All right. Welcome, men. Here we are. Michael Diamond, Russell Reynolds here for another installment episode of the Ignite the King podcast.
Back in
Welcome,
action.
Russell.
Thank you, Michael. Welcome, Michael.
Yeah. One of our fun subjects, the shadow. I think that's what we're going to be. That scary little shadow we all have following us. That's what we're going to be diving into tonight. It is a core piece of our work, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank you, Carl Jung. I don't think he was the first one to recognize this. I think the ancient Greeks actually knew about this, but he really brought it into the modern culture.
Yeah, well, they give him credit for coining the term the shadow, I believe. Yeah. Maybe I can give a little historical background to that, and then we can get into how this actually applies to the awakened masculine. How does that sound?
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. So as you said, this concept goes back a real long time, but Carl Jung, Swiss psychologist, father of analytical psychology, coined the term the shadow. And essentially, and what this means for men is this is the repressed part of yourself. This is the part that ultimately expresses itself as what we would call a bad behavior in your life, something that you do that isn't really consistent with who you are in your natural state. So part of men's work, a big part of men's work, is identifying the shadow, or really the shadow beliefs that underlie all the behaviors that you do, or let's say at least 90%, right, of the subconscious behaviors that happen in your daily life are ruled by these beliefs. And the shadow and identifying the shadow is a big part of that. I would love to hear your take on the shadow.
Yeah, the shadow, again, is, as I think I've mentioned on a previous episode, that part of ourselves that we hide, repress, or deny. And there's a misperception that the shadow is evil. It's not a demon to be exorcised. It's not something you're ever going to get rid of. It is the wounded part of ourselves that is crying out for healing, right? It's crying out for the attention that it needs to get the healing, which is manifest in all sorts of self-destructive behaviors, be it pornography, alcoholism, workaholism, any number of behaviors. And it can affect the way we show up for others and for ourselves. A shadow, if your parents planted the seeds of, man, you're such a good boy, you can do anything, I believe in you, I love you, Johnny. Lucky bastard. Most of us didn't get that.
That's what we're changing, right? With this generation is the fathers that are doing that. I know I'm doing that consciously, but yes. And just to say, sometimes it's, go ahead and I'll add my piece, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I want to hear your piece. The only thing I was going to say is, it's not always, and it's probably what you were going to say because you and I are on the same page. It's not always something dramatic or terribly destructive. Yeah.
How'd you know that's what I was going to say?
Yeah, because I was about to say it first. It's not necessarily that your father beat you or abandoned you. It could be something as, when you spilled something or you did something wrong. It's like, God damn it, Johnny, go to your room. Just that incident. Now, he could have had the worst day ever, fought with his boss, who knows?
Right.
But that small thing, which in the big scale, the grand scale of things, not that big of a deal. But to a child,
right,
they don't have the mental capability and faculty to interpret that correctly. Like, wow, my father's had a really bad day, I should check and see how his workday went. No.
Sorry. Yeah, obviously, I don't get that question a lot. So.
Yeah, right. It's like, oh wow, my father must not love me, or oh wow, there's something wrong with me, or oh wow, I'm a screw up. And the problem is that interpretation creates a belief. That belief creates a story. That story creates a behavior. And that behavior now starts replaying itself in your life and looking for self-validating evidence.
Right. Just gets reinforced.
Right. Just like people with, who've had relationship problems. When they recreate the same relationship problem from one relationship to the next. Again. Yeah. Then that subconscious shadow gets to go, see, I told you couldn't trust anybody.
Right.
Well, that's a story. It's not the truth.
Agree 1,000%. Just to give again, a little more parameters, because you hear a lot in the not really in the culture, but in the personal growth world is doing shadow work, is kind of a buzz. And it's important to say, if you're going to do that work, make sure you're doing it with someone who knows what the hell they're doing, because taking someone into the repressed, dark, challenged places in their psyche is not for an untrained professional. I just want to say that outright. Because sometimes, and as we say to our men when they leave an immersion, we say, do not do these processes on other people or try to process this work with other people, because first of all, out of context and without training, it can further amplify these shadows or these beliefs in someone. So just kind of want to have a caveat there. But why it's important to do is because this runs these beliefs, these core beliefs, again, as Russell's saying, that were laid down when we were children, make up at least 90% of our daily decisions that are just subconscious decisions. That's how powerful the subconscious is. Right. So part of the work is, one, becoming aware of the shadow and what the beliefs are. And we'll just throw it out there right now that the two most common core beliefs we see, I'll go out on a limb and say all men embody or live out, is I'm not good enough and I'm not lovable. I mean, really at the core of it, these are the two that we see. And I know I could feel men out there already, that's not me. That's not me. And it's like, okay. and I respect that to a point, and it's just been proven in our work with every man when we really get underneath it. It's like, whether it was something traumatic or something almost innocuous, it really does play into these two core belief patterns that we all run. So if we can just accept, or if as a man out there listening to this, if you can just accept that, okay, on some level, there's a part of me that feels like I'm not good enough, and as a result, love may be withheld or taken from me, then I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, and that not good enough can manifest in any number of different ways. I'm not smart enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not, whatever the enough is. And I'm not going to be loved because of it. I'm not going to get the job promotion. I'm not going to get the girl. I'm not going to get the accolades. I'm not, whatever it is. Now, a lot of men, in my experience, that will say, oh, that's not me. It's because they've overcompensated for it, right? It's like, it's like that deep-seated fear. I will go so far as to say terror that you're not good enough in some way, shape, or form makes you so driven and so focused on being the best at whatever you do, which is awesome. But if it's driven from fear, that's a problem, because that becomes a cancerous cell in the body, in the mind, in the psyche, in the soul, that starts eating away at you. And the problem with the fear being the source of that drive is you'll never be good enough. You'll never have enough money. You'll never have enough muscle. You'll never have enough whatever the fuck it is that you're using to compensate for that deep-seated fear of not good enough.
I think you're making a really important distinction that we should elaborate on, because many of men have succeeded in life because of a wound or something that was withheld, or something someone said they couldn't do, and they'll say, I'll show you and I'll be successful. And that's beautiful. And we want to make sure to have that clarity of that distinction that will drive a man to succeed, to pursue his dreams because someone said he couldn't do it. So if that's you, more power to you. But what also I hear you saying and want to elaborate on, if it is driven by this constant need to fill something that isn't there. And that thing that really needs to get filled up doesn't ever get addressed or nurtured, then it'll be almost this never ending cycle of having to get more or to achieve more or to grow the muscle or the money, or it just interferes with a man's ability to even manifest, attract, create that in his life, right? Where, I know that's some of the work we're doing to men right now. It's like, yeah, let's set some intention. Great. But if there's a shadow belief that's interfering or not congruent with the thing you're really wanting, then you can work as hard as you want. You'll probably never get it, right?
Right. If your 100%, if your manifestation is through work and making money, right? And it's like afraid. Think about this. The root belief is I'm afraid I'm not good enough, and because my parents were broke or because my parents were rich, whatever, however your child's mind interpreted that I'm going to fucking make more money than anybody else. I'm going to be the best at whatever I do, and now you've got because the fear was that you wouldn't be loved, right? So you've got a woman who goes, oh my God, good enough. You're the most important man in my life. I love you more than anything. I just need you to be here with me. I just need you to be present. Your core belief of not good enough being manifested through work, you're like, sorry, babe, can't. I got to go to work. Well, how's that working out for your ultimate fulfillment? It's not. And somebody said to me once about that desire to be the best. You have to be the best at everything you do. And they said, isn't that exhausting? And I'm like, fuck. Because I originally, this, I originally moved to Los Angeles from Texas as an actor, and I say now that I'm a recovering actor because I got over it. There's no 12-step, but there should be. But when I reached that point of like, this isn't really resonating with me anymore. This doesn't fit. I'm not. There's discord in my soul following this path. And I'm like, well, what is that about? And it was because I was terrified to let go of it. I put 10 years into it. And I looked inside and I'm like, oh, that's that part that's afraid to let go of the idea of being famous. Well, what's that about? Look deeper. Oh, shit. That's that little boy that's still afraid that he's not good enough and wants the rest of the world to prove it to him. Shit. Because if I'm an Oscar-winning actor, if I'm the best, right, then the whole world can validate me. But that's never going to come from outside. So with that awareness, I'm like, I'm not letting that wound drive my career choices anymore, right? And I've used the analogy like, would you let your 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old behind the wheel of your car give him the keys? No, because he's going to wreck some shit. A 3, 4, 5-year-old, is not capable of handling that level of equipment and adult responsibility. So why would you let a 3, 4, 5-year-old belief system drive the vehicle of your life? Why would you let it behind the wheel of the car of your life? So with that realization, I, changed paths, and deeply grateful I did. And it's an ongoing process. The not good enoughs never go away.
Well, you just said something back in there that I think is important to highlight. You said, well, when I went deeper, it was this. And when I went deeper than there, I saw this. And that's what I would encourage you men out there that are listening to this. Is something we say to the men all the time: go deeper, go deeper. It's almost like gotten to a point where it's like, ad nauseum, right? Where it is about going deeper and seeing the deeper layers that are there, and of course being facilitated in that. But what is manifesting on the surface is rarely really what's going on, right? It is 1, 2, 3. I mean, you can keep going as deep as you want, layers. And when we get to the core of it, it does typically hit on one of these core woundings that, again, got installed a long time ago. So some questions I would. And we're in the season of the lover right now in our work, and a lot of the lovers around life force. Life force is time, sex, money, power, right? All these core life force things, right? So I would even just pose the question to men out there. It's like, what are the stories that I was told about money? I know for me growing up, anytime someone that my parents knew did something that was questionable, the automatic response I heard was, well, they have a lot of money. Right. So I started to associate that if you had a lot of money, you were a bad person. So subconsciously, it's like in my nervous system was like, well, if I do make a lot of money, then I'm going to have love withdrawn from my parents.
I had that same message, different way.
Right. Yeah. And of course that was never their intent. And this is just, again, one of those examples where something simple that was said can cause a real core belief to get developed. And I didn't just hear that once from them, right? It was something I heard many times over. So I would just ask men out there to examine your belief systems around time, around sex, around money. Again, how many times have we asked men in our group, did you ever get that talk about sex from your father? And no hands go up, right? So these are the core things that we said are taboo, which, as you pointed out, are actually sacred. And we've said that a couple times now on these episodes because I think it's worth repeating. It's like, what are the beliefs that you were told or took on around these areas of your life, and start to examine that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that an area that's pretty common for that shadow to believe to manifest in men, to speak, is in self-judgment. And guys, how many times have you made a mistake, dropped something, forgot something, got, oh, you fucking idiot. God, so stupid. Bro, really? Like, and I've done it. I'm like, whoa. Easy, killer. Right? Because that's that reinforced message. And here's a good visual for you of the shadow. Gollum, Lord of the Rings. Remember Gollum? And when Bilbo started interacting with him, there were two very distinct personalities. There was that one who's like the wide-eyed, like child almost, who wanted to be friends and wanted to be loving. And then there's this shadow that came on and was like, no, we must take it. Whoa, slow down. Right?
It's literally like the two things on the shoulders, right?
That's that shadow. And by the way, for those of you who are not Lord of the Rings buffs, Gollum was originally a hobbit, just like Bilbo. It was the ring that turned him into that. So my analogy for you men is that shadows, unchecked, unhealed, become Gollum. They become this creature unto themselves that will destroy your life, your relationships, your happiness. I mean, what do you think somebody who's, and of course there's going to be like, I don't want to hear any trolls on this one because there's going to be varying degrees of reasons, but somebody who's a drug addict, an alcoholic, homeless, living in an alley, Skid Row, those are shadows. No, because just like all plants naturally lean towards the sun, I believe all humans naturally lean towards evolution, towards divinity, towards greater fulfillment. So if somebody has gotten in, of course, I mean, we could talk about victimness and they had this deck stacked against them, whatever. Okay, cool. I know, and I say whatever because I know lots of people that had that same deck stacked against them that rose up, that decided that they were going to step into their glory instead of stay in their story. There's a difference. But somebody who gets stuck in that shadow and that victimology, that wound, that story becomes their identity.
Yeah. Well, then they just find more things to prove themselves right, right? Which I think you were saying before. I also want to bring in the context here because when we're talking shadow, we also, in our language, we say sacred third, right? Which is what you're saying and leaning toward divinity. And I think, and because men will ask us, well, if it's not the shadow, what is it? And what we like to say is it's your natural state, right? And it's a sacred third. It is literally born from the shadows. So the shadow is essentially that distorted version. And as that distortion clears, then who you are naturally comes through, right? So as you said at the beginning of the episode here, it's like the shadow is not something to exorcise or kill or to get rid of. And we want to make that distinction. The shadow is very powerful. And as you get into that deeper work, you realize like, who you really are is born out of the shadows. That you're bringing it to the light. You bring it out of the shadows, right? And you bring it to the light. So when there's light, there's no shadow. But it's transforming that belief or that story into who you just naturally are. It's like literally almost like the visual of like peeling off the mask or peeling off the layers of who you aren't to discover who you are. It's like that just naturally comes out. And again, the way that you have to do the work is to look at where it ain't to know where it's at, is what I would say.
Something you said there, a couple of things you said is one, like the saying goes, if you shine the light on a shadow, it disappears, right?
Right.
Well, it's not quite that simple, right? And what we're doing is shining the light of awareness on the shadows,
Right.
right? But then we have our AAA. We've talked about it before, which deeper. is not a tow service if your car breaks down. It's awareness, acknowledgement, and then action. You have to do something about it. Right. And this is a challenge with a lot of personal development. I mean, you came from Marin County, the seat of the new age hippie in the world, right? And it's like, oh yeah, I'm doing my shadow work. I've acknowledged my shadows. Well, no, you just admitted that you had them, but you're not doing a damn thing about changing them. You're not doing a damn thing about healing them. So guess what? They're still running the show.
Right.
So when we shine the light on the shadow, it is awareness. First, be aware that it's there. Second is the acknowledgement of the effect it has had on you and the others in your lives. And third is action. What are you going to do to change it, right? We've said that nature abhors a vacuum. So if you just, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to do this thing anymore. And what are you replacing it with?
And how often do men want to jump from awareness to action, skip over the middle part?
Oh, all the time.
Right. Because men are good at fixing things, right? Well, I'm aware of this. Okay, so I'm going to do this different. It's like, okay, well, that probably just sets you up for that same cycle all over again, right?
Right. Yeah. And I love that you said that it's like chipping away. Your sacred third is the core essence of who you are. You know, that's your highest good or your unfulfilled potential, however you want to say it. But it's like Michelangelo in the statue of David, right? People ask, how did you create this incredible sculpture out of this block of marble? He goes, I didn't. The sculpture was already there. I just chipped away everything that wasn't David.
Yeah, I love that.
That's our work, right?
Yeah.
Except maybe in marble, it's kind of dog shit because it stinks. This is how it's showing up in our life. Imagine being in a block of dog poop. This is horrible. You got to clean that stuff off quick.
I'd love to give some examples of just, again, bringing in the context. We're in the lover season right now, and just to give some examples of what that sacred third of the lover looks like. And it is a man's aliveness, right? His joy, his bliss, his presence, right? These are all like the epitome of what we would say the sacred third of the lover expresses itself as. Whereas the shadow can be, as we talked about in one of the episodes, the addicted lover, the parts that are, whether it's social media, porn, alcohol, work, drugs, all the things that are addictive behaviors. And on the other end of that shadow are the impotent traits, where it's being mad, listless, abdication of energy and power, where when it comes into that sacred third, when we address those deeper things and have that deeper acknowledgement that you're talking about, then it's like you feel alive, right? You're able to be present with whomever or whatever the situation is. So just to give some of those examples to put it in context, because we say, oh, it's just your natural state, but some men out there probably like, I don't even know what the fuck that natural state is, because that's been a wounded part of me for fucking ever, right? So just important to highlight, like, well, you are meant to feel this way. Your lover energy is meant to be expressed as aliveness, joy, bliss, presence. So anything you want to share on that, I think would help men just connect to that feeling.
I just want to reiterate, in case there's men that are tuning in for the first time, while sex is a part of the lover archetype, it is not the totality of the lover archetype. The lover, I swear I can speak English, lover archetype, that was a tongue twister for some reason. It's about being heart-centered, right? Having your heart open. And there's, from Hanuman, there's lots of mythology talking about the open heart, of the warrior even. So just when we talk about the lover, we're in the season of the lover. We're not practicing tantric moves with each other. It's like we are talking about living from an open heart. And I'll give a personal example. Happened just the other day, if I may. Grocery store. I'm in the checkout line, And I was about to come up to the line. One line is open. She's like, "Hey, I can take you over here." But I knew the clerk, at the cashier at the other one. I'm like, "No, I'm going to say hi to Lisa." And she's like, "Oh, okay." The guy in front of me was an employee of the store, has the hat, has the jacket on. All he's got is like one of those yerba mate energy drinks, right? I've got the hand basket. I put it on the belt and it moves, right? It starts just advancing forward because I guess there's the sensor that stops it. This dude freaking back elbows my basket. And like, boom, twice. Fucking elbow checks my basket.
I would love to have been there for this.
And doesn't even look at me. And I'm like, my head cocks to the side. And especially because it was like, you know, being a martial artist, elbow back, I'm like, oh, really? Oh, we and I
do you want that back?
I felt this need to be like, hey, jerky. But I paused. And I'm like, one, I consider we always, in self-defense and martial arts, we always have to consider the consequences of our actions. But before that, even, I considered, what's this guy going through? He could have had the most shit day ever, and all he wants is an energy drink. And here's this guy pushing his basket up on him. I don't know what he went through. But instead of reacting and defending, I just sent the dude love. I'm like, hey, Ho'oponopono, bro. I'm sorry for whatever you're going through. Please forgive me for my role in it. Thank you. I love you. Just the Hawaiian prayer of, I'm probably saying Ho'oponopono. You know, the Hawaiian prayer, which, hey, guys, if you've never heard of Ho'oponopono, research it. Freaking incredibly powerful. But sending this guy love and forgiveness and asking forgiveness, even though you may be like, but you didn't do anything. Okay. But I was still involved some way, shape, or another.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. I was there. So by choosing that path instead, I raised the vibration of the field instead of lowering it. And it's not personal. He doesn't know me.
Right.
If he's got a personal vendetta against that particular basket, then I picked the wrong basket.
Well, he did work there. He might actually be.
He's like, oh, this basket again. Yeah, but it's like that's lover energy. Like relax. There's this is not really attacking me. And I was just saying to one of the other men in the group earlier this morning, I had the awareness. I did a divine masculine meditation last weekend with one of my other brothers and a MDS student. And an awareness I had is that anytime I am attacking or defending, be it in physical confrontation, be it in an argument with my woman, be it in business, anytime I'm attacking or defending, it's because I do not feel safe. And if I don't feel safe, what I have to recognize is the issue is not with the person, it's with me. And if I can create that sense of safety without attack or defense, but with presence and awareness, well, then I can step into kingship. Mm-hmm. Then I can show up as a different man. Then I'm not necessarily triggering further conflict and violence.
Yeah, beautiful example. And the only coloring I would do to that is to say energy precedes the form, right? And I'm saying this, raising my hand because this is my own personal experience, but it's the energy I bring to the situation, right? And whether it's with my wife and I'm like, I'm fine, and I'm coming with that energy. Well, it's like, well, not really.
What's your acronym for fine?
Fucked up, irrational, neurotic, and emotional.
There you go. FINE.
FINE. Fine, good, or okay.
Says, I'm fine. No, you're not.
Right. Fine. Yeah. So just as a general rule for men out there, and myself as a reminder, the energy precedes the form. Right. So how was the room after you left it? How did people feel because they were in your presence? Because in that situation with the cart or the thing at the checkout, you can be like, hey, bro, what the fuck? Or something. And it would have reinforced his belief system at that time about humanity or people and say, yeah, this is why I'm going to fucking go kill everyone or do something to myself or act a certain way, versus that little change in how you interacted with him might be just enough for him to see that there's light in the world or within himself, right? So as an awakened masculine man, we are now taking on that duty and responsibility to essentially leave the quote unquote room better than we found it, right? Leave the energy better than we found it. We are, my mentor, one of my chiropractic mentor, Donnie Epstein, says we are biochemically rewarded for what we add to the field. Literally in our physiology, we are biochemically rewarded or punished for what we add or take away from the field. So, this just brings us back to our intrinsic connection with nature, as you said, leaning toward the sun, leaning toward divinity and growth. Well, you are now responsible in this new awareness of the energy you bring to any situation or any human being or any circumstance. And you're rewarded or punished as a result of that. So what are you perpetuating? And this is where the self-analysis and the check-in of like, yeah, what is my belief system around that? Is everyone out to get me, or is that really the story I'm telling myself? Yeah.
Another awareness from one of the men in that meditation. He was studying. I think it was a derivation of A Course in Miracles, and one of the teachings, which very detailed, but some definite pearls of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was, watch yourself like a hawk and take inventory of all of the grievances that you're carrying throughout the day.
Right.
Because those grievances are blocking your light. They're blocking divinity from getting to you. It's like putting up an umbrella in the middle of in the sunshine. The sun can't get to you anymore because you've covered yourself with this umbrella. So all these grievances, all these little resentments. In Los Angeles, it took me a while to come to the enlightened awareness that driving is not combat.
You sure?
Because I sure as hell was treating it that way.
Right.
This mother pulled right in front of me.
Yeah, road rage is the biggest example of this, I would say, in the
combat.
culture.
It's not a contest.
Right.
It's a coming together of humanity and an opportunity to offer grace, patience, and forgiveness. Again, you don't know what that guy's going through. And when you're the guy going through it, wouldn't you want somebody to give you the same grace, understanding, patience, forgiveness?
Right.
I would, because I've been that guy. And I was just going to say, somebody giving me that frequency instead of the resentment and the pushback has changed everything when it happened.
I'm gonna end with this. I know we're gonna have a shorter episode today because we're gonna cover this shadow topic a lot throughout our episodes. So giving almost a taste of this, and I may be getting these numbers wrong, but it's something like we have 10,000 thoughts a day, something like that, and 80% of them are negative. I mean, that's a lot that we're having just to deal with in the daily routine of life. And here's the thing, your mind is not designed to make you happy. It's designed to keep you alive.
Right.
Literally, the purpose of the mind is to be able to survey the field, the environment, and to point out what isn't right, what is a threat, right? That's really our core evolutionary DNA. So if we're relying on our mind to keep us happy, or to make us happy, we're looking in the wrong place. And this is where the lover energy does start to come in, because the mind is there to direct and to focus. It's more in the warrior energy where we focus it and take action and get shit done, as you like to say. But it's not the mind that makes us happy. It's just not.
It's the heart. Yeah, it's absolutely. And I love that you point out that there's more neurons in the heart than in the brain. That's the real thought center, is the heart. Is where it's supposed to be. And yes, if we go back to, caveman days or ancestral days, it's like, oh, look at the pretty daisies. No, look at the snake hiding in the daisies. Snake will kill you. Daisies won't. So the brain was trained to focus on what's wrong. But if that becomes your MO, if that becomes your standard operating procedures, there's no happiness there. We have to learn to treat the mind like a puppy, right? If trained properly, it will be your greatest and most loyal ally. If untrained, that puppy will tear up your furniture, shit on your rug, and make your life miserable. How many people have trained their brain to be subordinate or subservient to their heart? Yeah. Very few.
And the only thing that we really have control over is where we put the focus of the mind, right? And I like to give the example of like a theater, and the conscious mind is like the spotlight, and what is it choosing to focus on the stage, where the subconscious is like the house lights, right? And so many of us are focused so much on where we're pointing that spotlight. See, look, I told you, look over there. That's what's not right. Versus we're just not seeing the whole picture. We're not almost, quote unquote, relaxing ourselves enough to see that there's more going on than just where we're pointing that spotlight, which is the mind, which, as in your example, is only going to really look at what isn't working. So again, what we're repeating, what we're telling ourselves over and over again, that's proving it right. Yeah, well, what kind of life is that leading to? So just as we finish up, Russell, what would you say would be some simple things a man can do to begin this process of identifying the shadow and doing that, starting that work?
I'm laughing because I was just about to ask you the same thing. Let's talk about our actionables. And first of all, I want to call myself out because I realized in this episode, I made a Lord of the Rings reference with a Game of Thrones banner hanging behind me. So I don't know if that's, crossing the streams, but I'm big fan of both. Actionables. I love that one of take inventory of the grievances you're carrying throughout the day.
Yeah.
Take not only the grievances and the resentments that are perpetuating, that are popping up throughout your day. Take inventory of those. Write them down if you want to be so bold, because you're going to be like, holy shit, there's a lot.
Right.
But also take inventory of the stories that you're telling yourself. What are you saying about you on a daily and regular basis? That's the first step of awareness.
And I would just add on to that, and I said it before or earlier in the episode, around the areas of life force, what are the stories about money that you were told? What were the stories around, or belief that around sex that you, or intimacy that you were taught or told or took on? Around time, around power, all the areas that comprise our life force. Like, do assessment. And I like your version of like in your current life, notice where you have your grievances. I think between those two things, we'll cover a lot of ground.
Yeah. And I'd say as a last actionable, where can you raise the vibration of the field of humanity or of the person that you're interacting with? Where can you offer grace? Where can you offer forgiveness? Where can you offer compassion? And I'm not always a turn the other cheek kind of guy, by the way. If the guy who elbowed my basket turned around and tried to elbow me, well, Christmas morning, good times. But I'd be like, oh boy, I'm not going to try to hug it out with somebody who's punching my face, right? There's a time for violence and action. That is rare, though. It's rare. Yeah. And we always talk about in MDS, we want to de-escalate the potential for violence. Be aware of, through your energetics, through your thoughts, through your words, if you are escalating conflict and discord.
Yeah.
Or can you be gracious? Can you be forgiving? Can you be compassionate? Can you be the bigger man and create an opportunity to de-escalate?
Love that. I think that's where we're going to leave it. Beautiful. Boom. All right, man. Love to hear if you want to leave a comment on this episode. What have you noticed in this? That would be awesome. And this will definitely be a topic we dive into further as we go along this journey together. Yeah. With that, have a beautiful day. Aho.
Be well.